The Bay Area housing market is slowing down. This is not a drill. March was a record-breaking month for nearly every single county here in the Bay Area. But now, mid-April, things are starting to slow down in various parts of the Bay Area, and we're going to go over all of those housing statistics right here, right now. But before we get into the data, before we get into the numbers, if you're a home buyer in today's marketplace and you're looking for a comprehensive data set to assist you in your home buying decision making, you can text the word data plus the area or the neighborhood or the zip code that you're looking in, and we'll get that information sent straight to your email inbox. And if you're a home seller in today's marketplace and you're wondering, is now the right time for me to sell? And if it is, what should I price my property at? Because right now, pricing strategy is very, very crucial. You can text the word data plus your property address to the number down below, and we'll get that information sent straight to your inbox. Don't let what happened in March fool you. There are pockets of opportunity right now in the Bay Area where we are seeing signs of a potential slowdown. Or is it just a spring break slump? We're about to find out. Let's start with Santa Clara County. In March, we had an amazing month with 1,679 homes pending in Santa Clara County versus 721 homes for sale. This is ludicrous. I mean, just the insane amount of demand relative to the amount of supply is frankly something that I have not seen in my nearly now 8-9 years of selling homes here in the Bay Area. It's crazy to think just how much demand there is relative to the amount of supply here in Santa Clara County right now. Now, when you look at what pendings did year over year in March, meaning what pending activity was like this year versus what pending activity was like last year, this is important for everyone to understand because we're going to be looking at this a lot across every single county. We had a drop off of about 6%. Now, this is to be expected when inventory reduces by 31%, which is exactly what happened between March of last year and March of this year. So we had a 31% drop off in inventory levels, but only a 5.9% drop off in pending activity. But now I want us to pay attention to what is happening right now in April. In April, we're seeing very similar or consistent drop off in supply, 31.8% month to date here in April, meaning for the first 15 days here in April, first 14, 15 days here in April, we are seeing a drop off of 31% year over year in inventory levels, but a drop off of 15.9% in pending activity. That is a fairly significant drop off from pending activity from last month, which was only about 5%. So we're seeing an additional 10% drop off in pending activity. So what this is telling us is that right now there is less demand in the marketplace relative to the amount of supply as there was last month. Now, does this mean that we're experiencing some sort of economic meltdown? Absolutely not. But it is worth noting because right now, the environment is more favorable for buyers than it was last month. I'm hearing reports right now of open houses that are not being as well attended as they were last month. We are starting to see buyers become a little bit more picky about what they're buying. Now, this is Santa Clara County. Let's go over to San Mateo County. In San Mateo County, another amazing month for the housing market there. 565 homes pending versus 343 homes active on the market, which means pending activity was far outpacing supply, demand far outpacing the supply in San Mateo. In San Mateo, we're seeing a couple of interesting things here. Year over year pending activity was down in March 6.8%, while for sale inventory or inventory that was up for sale year over year in March was down 28.5%. So way less homes for sale than there was at this time last year, and only just a slight drop off in activity. Well, month to date here in April, meaning for the first 14 days here in April, we're seeing a drop off of inventory at only 20%. So inventory levels are rising month over month right now, what we're seeing, versus pending activity dropping ever so slightly by 10.4%. But the real story here is inventory levels rising nearly 10% and the drop off in pending activity at about 3 or 4%. So the net effect is actually that the market is quite a bit softer than it was last month. Now, we're not talking a monumental amount of softness. We're talking about like 10 to 15% in what is already a white hot market. That 10 to 15% could feel just like one less offer, which means that instead of 10 offers, you're getting 9. That being said, it is significant enough to know. This isn't like a 2 to 3 point swing here. We're talking 10 point swing in one direction and then another like 3 to 4 point swing in the other direction, which is the net effect is actually more significant than we saw in Santa Clara County. What does that mean for buyers right now in San Mateo County? Well, relative to last month, we're seeing roughly the same amount of buyers. I mean, the activity, the demand is fairly consistent, but what is dropping off right now, or what is increasing, I should say, is actually going to be the supply. And so for home buyers, this is great news because for last month, it might not have been that much to choose from. So there is a slight bump right now in inventory levels in San Mateo County. Should be great news if you're a home buyer in San Mateo area. Now, flipping over to the East Bay in Alameda County. Now, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, the news is not as good for home buyers. Right now in March, we saw 1,278 homes pending versus 670 homes active, which is just absurd for any home buyer. That the environment right now is incredibly competitive. And when you look at the pending activity versus last year, there's a drop off of about 7.7%. And this month to date versus last year month to date, there's a drop off of 9.6%. So a fairly insignificant drop off in pending activity or demand. And relative to the supply, it's fairly consistent too. We only saw a 2.7 increase last month versus the year before. And now in April, we're seeing a 3.1% decrease. So it's like a 5-point swing there versus like a 2-point swing pending. So really the net effect is fairly consistent with where we were at last month as well as last year. So the market continues to be very strong for sellers in Alameda County, despite what might be happening in San Mateo County as well as Santa Clara County. Contra Costa County is practically the exact same story. We're seeing 1,340 homes pending this last month in March versus 598 homes active. That is, it's almost 3x the amount of homes that are pending right now versus the amount of homes that are active, which is insane. And when you look at last year's demand versus this year's demand, we did see a drop off of 11%. Now, obviously, that is fairly significant when you think about it. When you look at the inventory levels, we only saw a 0.2% increase. So basically, the inventory levels have remained fairly neutral year over year. We did see a slight drop off in demand, still very, very, very hot. And when you look at what that looks like or what that feels like for buyers right now, because the buyers who are buying right now, they are not experiencing that much of a drop off, because when you look at last month versus this month, we're only seeing a 2.5% decrease in activity versus 17.8% increase in inventory levels. So what is being felt in Contra Costa County is a fairly significant increase in the amount of homes for sale between last month and this month. So we're starting to see more inventory, more homes come on the market. When you look at that's good news for buyers. But when you look at what's happening this month to date versus last year, month to date, there's not that much of a difference. It's only 4.5% increase. So historically, there's been more homes listed in April in Contra Costa County than in March. And so what's happening here is more of like a historical trend in inventory increases versus a significant increase in inventory levels caused by a abnormal surge in inventory. In other words, the slowdown that's happening in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County, the relative slowdown versus last month, is not being experienced as much in the East Bay, in Contra Costa County, and Alameda County. At least, not yet. Let's flip on over to San Benito County. And San Benito County is one of the counties that is most heavily impacted by this new trend. In March of this year, we saw 61 homes pending versus 41 homes active on the market. That's great. That's a really, really strong month for the county in San Benito. That being said, when we look at what's going on between last year and this year, we saw a drop off of 12.9% in pending activity versus what we're seeing right now in San Benito County this month in April, we're seeing a 31.6% decrease in pending activity. That's significant. That's nearly a 20-point swing year over year in terms of the relative amount of demand. Now, that might seem like a lot, but what's even more concerning, especially if you're a home seller in San Benito, is the fact that inventory levels have increased 81% month to date year over year, meaning that relative to last year at this same time, there's 81% more homes for sale and also 31.6% less buyers in the market. That's nearly a 100-point swing in this month. And last month was looking really, really good. This month, not so much. Now, when you really dive into the numbers, this is what really starts to concern me, is we're looking at for sale inventory, number of homes for sale month to date, year over year, or month to date, I should say. It's 67 homes for sale. So there's 67 homes currently listed in San Benito County versus only 26 homes pending. That's almost a complete opposite of what it is this month. Whereas 61 homes pending and 41 homes on the market, we're seeing almost a complete shift in the market where the absorption rate is going from like 150% to like 50%. That's a lot. That's a big, big swing in a really short amount of time. So this is a market to be paying attention to moving forward, because if things don't sort themselves out here in the next couple of weeks, this could be more than just a spring slump. Now, moving over to San Francisco. In San Francisco, you saw 621 homes pending versus 796 homes on the market. San Francisco is making a slow and steady climb back into relevance here. That being said, we are seeing a little bit of a slowdown on the demand side of things. When you look at last year, month to date in March, we saw a drop off of pending activity of only 4%. So like, that's not that bad. But when you look at what's going on this month to date versus last year, month to date, there's a 16.8% drop off in pending activity. So demand relative to last year in April is starting to show signs of a slowdown, fairly significant. It's not super significant, but it is 12, 13 point swing. And so that is something to pay attention to moving forward. Will we see less and less and less demand in that marketplace, or will things turn back around in the city moving forward? And finally, we have Solano County. And in Solano County, it's actually the complete opposite of what's going on in a lot of other areas here in the Bay Area. We saw 430 homes pending in Solano County versus 241 homes on the market in March. When you look at the pending activity in March of this year versus March of last year, we're seeing a drop off of about 8.5%. Now, here's the kicker. Month to date this year versus month to date last year, we're seeing an increase in pending activity of 15.1%. In other words, from last month to this month, we're seeing essentially a 30-point swing in the positive in terms of activity level. That's amazing. Now, the reason for this is twofold. Number one, we are seeing an increase in inventory levels. And so when we see an increase in inventory levels, the demand is going to be there to and the demand is there, we're going to soak up all that inventory. And so that's partly what you're seeing here, because inventory levels are increasing and not increasing significantly, but month to date, year over year, an 11.3% increase in inventory levels. So we are seeing a slight increase in inventory. That could be part of it. And the other part of it too is look what's going on in Contra Costa County and Alameda County. It's going bonkers bananas over there. And suddenly people are thinking, well, gosh, it's only 20 more minutes up the freeway to parts of Solano County. I might as well just go there. I could buy way more house and spend way less money. And so I think we're starting to see a trickle effect of the competitive environment of the East Bay, of Alameda County, of Contra Costa County. And that's starting to bleed into Solano County and positively impact that area, at least for the time being. So there you have it. We are so topsy-turvy right now. What was a very consistent narrative in the Bay Area housing market for 3 months, which was things are going up, up, and up in every single area, not so much anymore. We're starting to see signs of a slowdown, particularly in areas like Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, San Francisco, as well as San Benito County. Some of us at home might be thinking, well, is now the right time to buy then? Should I be pausing? Should I be putting my home search on hold? Well, let me offer you a couple of possibilities for what's going on right now, because truthfully, we don't really know for sure what's happening. It's not like there's been some sort of like catastrophic economic meltdown that's instigated this, but it could be a variety of different things. Number one, it's tax season. People are fully invested in trying to make sure that they pay Uncle Sam what he's supposed to get paid. And that drains a lot of people. I've heard the last 2 weeks, I've had a lot of people talking to me about taxes, and it's that time of year, right? So people get distracted by that. Number two, the interest rate hike. Interest rates are now in the fives, and we have not seen interest rates in the fives in like over a decade. And so this is a shock to the system. Just like any shock to the system, it's a temporary thing. People retract back. They get almost blindsided by this new interest rate that's scary. But once scary becomes the new normal, it will not be as limiting as it is, at least at the beginning, because right now we're readjusting to this new normal. But once that adjustment period takes place, it could be 30 days, it could be 60 days, it could be 90 days, but however long the adjustment takes, it's not going to last forever. And once we are adjusted to this new normal, I believe that initial shock factor will be less of an issue moving forward with the overall demand here in the Bay Area. And then finally, it's spring break right now. You've got the kids out of school, and anytime that kids are out of school here in the Bay Area, we see a slowdown in the housing market. And I'll explain why. During the summer, it's well known that most Bay Area housing markets do not do that well during the summer because all the buyers go out of town and they're distracted with the children back at home. And so the absolute worst time to list your home in many parts of the Bay Area is right in that heat of summer, which is like July 1st through end of July, early August. That's really the worst time to be selling your home in most parts here in the Bay Area. And what could be happening here is a bit of a spring slump where we're seeing interest rates, tax season, and spring break all kind of creating this perfect storm of distractions that are ultimately impacting demand right now. Could this be the eye of the storm? Could this be the beginning of the end? I mean, it's possible, right? Like anything is possible. I think a lot remains to be seen here over the next couple of weeks. But that being said, even if this is the eye of the storm, we have a long road to a neutralization in the real estate market. We're talking at least another 6 months of climbing home prices. They might not be climbing as fast as they were the last 3 months, but we can still expect home prices to rise consistently over the next 6 months. And so if right now you're a home buyer and you're watching this video, the message is very clear. There's opportunity here right now that wasn't necessarily there even a few weeks ago. Now, in previous videos, I have warned that this market here in 2022 is very eerily similar to what we were seeing or what we did see in 2018. And guess what? April was the month where things started to slow down just a little bit, and we really saw the effects come fall of that year. And so if you're sitting at home right now and you're trying to think, well, what do I do? Truth is that every single person has a unique situation. And so it'd be really hard to give general advice at this point. And so the best thing for you to do is text the word consult to the number down below. That's consult to the number down below to sit down with me and one of my team members to go over your home search in detail and figure out whether or not this is the right time for you to make that move, or if we should wait until the fall. And some people, it will make more sense now. And for some people, it might make more sense later. Now, if you're a home seller and you've been on the fence about whether to do it now or do it later, I would say that time is of the essence. I don't know if I would wait too much longer, because at this point you are playing with fire. Now, do I expect the market to have this dramatic downturn where we see home prices fall by 10, 20%? No, absolutely not. But as a seller, you want all the leverage that you can get. And so selling in an environment like this is going to be much more favorable than selling in an environment in the fall, where even if prices don't go down and they stabilize, it will be far less advantageous to sell at that time due to the neutral market conditions. And so if you want optimal conditions to sell your home in, this is still a good time to do it. I don't know if that will necessarily be the case come fall. And if you are a home seller who would like to figure out, well, is now the right time to do it? And if it is, what's the right approach? What's the right strategy? What's the right pricing strategy? What's the right marketing approach? you can text the word "sell my home" to the number down below, and we'll sit down together one-on-one and go over your situation and ultimately get a game plan together to get you the highest possible price for your home. It's hard to predict what's going to happen next with the Bay Area housing market, but you can rely on us here at the Selling Silicon Valley Group to continue to bring you the most relevant and up-to-date data and stats. If you've made it this far in the video and you are not yet subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button down below. Give the little thumbs up and hit the notification bell as well. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps us here at SSV get in front of more people that need our help like you. This is Danny Gould, everyone. I'm Selling Silicon Valley. Catch all of you in the next video.